and he's also won several business awards across his long career. I'm delighted to welcome Pat Walsh to the You and Your Business studio. Hiya, Pat.
Hi, Alec. How are you?
Fantastic. Great to see you again. I was just thinking there, I'm going to take you on a little trip down memory lane. Most of my guests kind of go, oh, do I really want to go here? But why not? I'm going to take you back to your last year at school. Or were you the academic? Were you the person who loved school, or you just couldn't wait to get out of it?
I am now. I suppose I'm a classic academic.
Right.
I really enjoy the work of academia and books and philosophy and everything else. But I wouldn't have been down. I went to school in Greendale.
All right.
And for a start, thank you very much for having me on your show. As you know, we know each other a very long time through the good offices of Dublin Chamber and elsewhere. So it's a pleasure, and I'm delighted that you are flying as well. So great privilege to be with you today. So thank you very much, Alec. So back to Greendale. Yeah, I went to school in Greendale, which was an experimental school in North Dublin, Komeer. A lot of your listeners will be familiar with it. It was the first comprehensive non-denominational mixed school in the country, bit of an experiment. And I had a mixed time in school, to be honest. I didn't probably have a great time, didn't do great, didn't feel great about things. On the face of it, it was interesting because we had Brian Mullins, the famous Dublin teacher. I had Brian as a sports teacher. I had Ruggie Doyle almost every day. So I had Ruggie Doyle for English and geography for all the 5 or 6 years, can't remember, probably 6 years back then. And Paul Mercier, the playwright, and Anton Carroll, the former Donegal football player, was the principal. So really interesting group of teachers. So I finished school in '84. I didn't really enjoy most of it, to be truthful. But what was really, really nice was I set up business when I was 21.
Right.
In the mean between leaving school, I did 2 courses and did some work experience as a programmer. Worked as a programmer for close on 2 years. But I set up in Bagger Street back in '88 when I was 21. And next time I got a phone call from Anton Carroll, the principal in Greendale, to invite me in, talk about what I'm doing. He obviously got wind that a local ex-student had set up a business, a computer business, an IT business. So it was just marvelous experience, very uplifting. I remember fondly to this day, even though it's over 30 years ago. Anton gave me some business, bought a few computers for the school. Great. I got to spend some time in the teacher's room. Sort of there's another name for it. Where do teachers go when they keep away from the pupils? There's another name for it. So staff room, and hang out there a bit and meet the demons. Who I feared for 6 years, meet him in a person from a different perspective. And it was just a wonderful close off to that period of my life, and I could turn, I suppose, a lot of negativity into something positive. And when I was kind of done there, they presented me with a picture of a Dutch artist, which I still have to this day as a nice memory. So nice turnaround and of that last few years in school.
And there's a lifelong lesson in that, because we tend to see things from a singular perspective. And so you managed to get that sort of 360 on it that changed your perspective completely.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was, and I think it's almost a pity other, I suppose, students, kids don't have that opportunity who maybe, hated school or for whatever reason, like tough backgrounds and, for whatever reason, didn't have a good experience in school, to maybe go back into the school 2 or 3 years later, meet their teachers, meet the principal and have a cup of coffee with them, whatever. And it just is very liberating, in fact, very liberating. So it's like getting something off your shoulders, I think. So yeah, good experience. Yeah. So
you talked about getting involved in sort of computer programming. Why? What sort of lured you into a place that really didn't exist at the time very much?
Yeah. I did a LinkedIn post about 2 weeks ago, and it was shared quite a lot and got a lot of reception on no other than Sir Clive Sinclair, who died 2 weeks ago. And I suppose Clive Sinclair would have been one of my inspirations and my heroes. So when I won't retell the story, it's there on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to look me up in LinkedIn, Pat Walsh, just the story's there, and it's quite well received. So happy to share it out. But the gist of it was that, I was really interested in computer program as a young 13, 14-year-old. Did a paper round as 15, saved up the money to buy a Sinclair Spectrum, and delivered a freebie inky paper, Northside News, into 500 letterboxes per week for the princely sum of £2.98. That's less than a penny a newspaper. Think about that. Yeah. So, oh, good God, Komeer was the minimum wage gang. But eventually, with a bit of help from my family, I cobbled up the money to buy the Sinclair Spectrum, and that got me into programming, did some machine code, assembly language. On the Spectrum, working on the Z88 processor and looking at stack technologies and stuff like that. And I actually developed a game called Max Fagers, and that game was sold on Clive Sinclair Spectrum, ZX Spectrum in Ireland and some in the UK. So it's for sale in Cleary's and Eason's and Tomorrow's World and places like that. So that was a great thrill. Commercially it was a flop. These little, the irony of it was I was sticking inky newspapers into people's letterboxes to pay for my dream little computer. But the commission checks that I got through my letterbox were pickings on fair dues to my dad, my father Amos. He insisted at the time that I got I think I was only supposed 16, £100 startup payment. Right. Starter payment, which was a good bit of money in those days. So that's how I got into it, and I was always determined in school to start up a business from a very young age, because only one thing I was going to do, and that was start up a business. From 14, 15, I remember even doing micro business plans in schools and setting up an IT company. So that's all that was ever going to happen.
And it's interesting because you didn't come from a sort of an entrepreneurial background.
No, my father was a civil servant and in the army, and mother was a homekeeper, and there's very little business experience that I can recall. My brother's going into business, and I suppose my sister and extended family, but no, virtually zero background in business. So whatever gene came across me, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah.
But you were now to take this business to another levels because you got involved in selling sort of software and hardware. Tell us about how you sort of set that up and engaged with clients in the early days.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I think about it now, I'd be scared to do it, particularly when you're 21 and you're green and you really know what's happening, and you're probably quite gullible, but you just have this belief in wanting to do something and no fear. That's a bit of a, I suppose, an adage, no fear. I'm not sure that's true, but certainly not aware of what you should be afraid of. I think that's probably more accurate when that term is thrown around willy-nilly. So, afraid of the wrong things. So, yeah, the business, I sold PCs nationwide, some software, Microsoft software, networks. And the business quickly grew to, I think I was employing about 10 or 11 people. We set up a training division. We salespeople, support people, selling Wang PCs, IBM PCs at the time, and some non-branded equipment as well, IT equipment. The days of the BNC coaxial networks, which were very unreliable. Novell, a lot of Novell equipment, people remember that. So these were self-contained LANs, local area networks. And what again was interesting about the time, it was a really nice time. Right. In Ireland, down in Dublin. I know things were tough economically, certainly in the 80s, but you could do business, you could get around the likes of Dublin very easily. You hop in your car at 7:30 in the morning, and by 6 o'clock, you could possibly visit between 50 and 20 customers or suppliers. Now, I'm sure Alec, you'll agree, there's absolutely no way.
Not a chance.
You could do that now. I remember parking at our offices in Bagga Street and driving to Dame Street for lunch.
Gosh, they're good old days, all right.
And then driving back to Bagga Street. So these were good days, and that's a lot of innocence. And you whip around very, very quickly. You could go to literally north south side, delivering PCs, maybe setting up a PC, making sure the customer's happy, collecting a check, picking up a printer, going to a supplier. Busy. You could do an awful lot more.
Yeah.
And from a point of view of just customer transactions, not relying on third parties, and really being, I suppose, the key here is you're very much in the face of the customer.
Sure.
So myself and my team were out with the customer. We weren't relying on third party couriers or to do business. So that's my memories.
But but it also suggests, Pat, that was a very good business model, because the fact that you kind of skipped over very quickly, that you've suddenly gone from a one-man show to an 11-man show, and all that entails in terms of managing people, making sure that there's money in the bank every week to pay them.
Yeah. There was a high demand for that type of IT at that time. We built the business up quickly to within about 2 years, to about 500,000 turnover, and onwards we will peak well over 1 million by the time I exited, and more, in fact, probably up to 2. But so big numbers for that time. Obviously, some items were higher margin than others.
Sure.
The backbone of the business was support. Was, as you mentioned, really, really good support for contracts. And I've always been very keen on recurring income, and waking up on a Monday morning, the first Monday of the month, and having at least a fairly good inclination of what revenue is going to come in this month. And for the next 12 months, I've never felt comfortable in a business that doesn't do that. They can turn into potentially boring businesses, and businesses which do not grow, but it gives a lot of, I think, of personal security and business stability, where there's a recurring customer contracts in place. And that's certainly what I've tried to emulate in all the business I've been involved in since.
Well, I'll tell you what, it certainly will give you more nights sleep than the other model.
Yeah, certainly would. I'm sure you may have been involved in both over the years, and I think I wouldn't assume that most businesses get that. There are still a lot of businesses who rely on next day's trading, and who don't have the comfort of what is now called, of course, the SaaS model, software as a service model, of recurring income, or even in our own business, Sky Business Centres, where we like to we steer away from the very flexible model. We like our clients to sign up for longer, so we can really focus on looking after them and not be repainting the office every few weeks. So we like to build our structure and supports about long-term relationships, and that's very important. But in the IT world, yes, if you're just relying on selling printers and PCs and making some margin without the support, life will be dull, and certainly your bank balance will be much lower.
Yeah, and also it allowed you, because it took you into new markets as well. I mean, not alone were you operating in Dublin, you managed to move this out countrywide and into the UK. So that must have been an interesting experience for you.
Yeah, we got a lot of food business and food plants and agricultural plants, and we developed a grain harvest system. So we did some software development as well. And I suppose, to time we exited, we had customers in the UK, a lot in Northern Ireland, and throughout the Republic, and every single county. So everything from slightly smaller accountancy firms up to Avonmore Creameries, Aer Lingus. I'm forgetting now, but we have some quite big
Stafford. Don't forget Stafford. Would have been a good
Stafford Groups in Wexford. Yeah, we're eternally grateful for giving me the start. Headed by Victor Stafford back in those days, who went on to establish, to buy out the lifestyle business and a number of hotels. And Stafford Fuel, Stafford Shipping were one of my first customers, and always grateful to them, and great people to work with.
And it's interesting because, I mean, it shows that you were doing something right. The fact that you managed to get contracts with large companies like this suggests that you probably, I won't say played your hand, but you don't talk it up too much. So obviously the service was there, and companies of this stature were quite prepared to pay for it.
Yeah, I think one thing I suppose give myself credit for, without blowing trumpet, is I applies to Sky Business Centres everywhere we do. I have very high attention to detail, And
Right.
it's the little things in life which are quite often the most important. And I'd be very much keen on the Leave No Trace movement here, and likes of tidy towns and things like that I'm involved in. So if you're going to leave a mess behind, your work and what you do, it's not a long-term strategy. And if you are a messy person, it's going to be very difficult to make a business. So my view always in doing installation in the IT world is to leave the customer always better off than you have been, and their environment more organized and cleaner than it was when you arrived. And I suppose practical little examples of that is when we were installing, we will have sold thousands and thousands of PCs over those 16 years, is we would have had a checklist. So we would have hoovered up after us. We would have disposed of all the boxes ourselves. And this is going back 30 years ago, by the way. We would have had a checklist. We would have expected our cabling. So we're ahead of our time in that way. But basically, when we go out that door, the customer is left with a smile on their face. We can talk about wows and customer care and what's influenced me, if you like. But they will certainly be my principles right away, right away through. And there's nothing worse than you buy something new, technicians being in, your carpet's dirty, there's bits of plastic and cable ties and crap on your desk. They're going out the door, and it leaves you with a sour feeling, and it's just not good enough.
And that's amazing. I mean, there's a great lesson in that. And I think for business, if anybody was to leave this interview today after listening to it, they just took that one piece out. Attention to detail. It's the small things that amount to a huge amount in terms of customer service and also generates new business.
Absolutely. So, I'm sure you've heard of the book Moments of Truth, written by the former SAS Scandinavian CEO who turned the business around in the 80s into one of the most successful airlines in the world. And he critically, I apologize, I don't have his name written down. I should do. Maybe you can share it out later on. On Twitter. Alec, and we get his name. I think it's Larson. But anyway, what he did, which would have inspired me, is to identify the key points of interaction with your customers. It's more than we think, but to make a list of them and make sure every single one of them, from cradle to grave, is achieved with a wow. So they're called the moments of truth. So every touch point with your customer, from initial lead, initial inquiry to quotation, along your pipeline, to fulfillment, to order, to post-sales, right through follow-up, you identify as a moment of truth, and you ensure that is done with a wow.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. And if you want to develop a business and separate yourself out from your competitors, that's the area you should focus on. Yeah. Anyway, tell us, you weren't going to stay in that business all your life. You got an opportunity, obviously, to sell it. So time to move on. I think you also mentioned you might have sold it a bit earlier. Maybe you hung around too long.
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting earlier, and I suppose I'm getting at the age where I'm entitled to give advice. I think, but hoping not boring. Yeah, so I'm heavily involved in the startup industry now, and I suppose I physically meet a lot of young startups, and it's very difficult to do it on your own, particularly when you're young age. There's a lot of help and support out there. But just quickly to backtrack, I wouldn't recommend you do it without having someone with you if you are very young. It's my general recommendation. So a partnership I think is really good if you get on. So yes, I exited in 2004 from the IT company Vingo IT Solutions, and prior to that, at the same time, I set up Sky Business Centres in 1998. And I think with one centre in our Clontarf Centre, which is a service office centre. And I suppose along the way, I was starting to acquire some commercial properties. And so after 2004, I focused in that area. Probably not the best years and run up to do so, but built up a small portfolio of commercial properties, and we have them as our business centres today. So we have 4 business centres in Dublin, and so they're serviced office centres. We provide, I suppose, high quality workspace, very high level of customer service, and therefore, I suppose, for mainly professional firms, typically from 2 up to about 20 people. Do we have some bigger facilities as well? In total, we've almost 100 individual office units spread over our 4 sites, approximately 500 clients on our books.
Yeah.
And we really a great team headed by Jean-Michel, our general manager, who helps me in driving the business forward. And we're out of town, which has been a huge benefit during COVID.
Yes, of course.
But to us, we've had to keep our centres open because a lot of our clients very much involved with front line. We've large pharmaceutical companies, large corporates who've been directly involved in the pandemic. So we can know the option of shutting our doors was never an option. And our team really stepped up to the plate with a combination of working from home and some having to be there on site to look after our clients' needs. So I think we coped fairly well, and things are back now as busy as ever.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's interesting because what you've done is you've followed through, and while you've moved into a different sector, it's this recurring income model that you liked. It fitted nicely with these sort of business centers.
Yeah, well, Sky Business Centres is it's a lovely business. I always say it's very akin to a hotel model, to the hospitality model, in that we have a reception, albeit receptions manned 8:30 to 5. Sure. 24, our clients have 24/7 access. We gave a room just like a hotel room. They don't want us bursting into a room unannounced. And for obvious reasons. So, there's a certain distance we keep, but when they need us, they need us. So we provide full maintenance. If there's a problem with a chair, we just replace the chair. We make sure we have several broadband providers, just in case one goes down, we switch over to another one. So there's a whole plethora of backup services which are there for our clients to ensure that they can get on with running their business without worrying about the small things which can trip them up.
I mean, as a business entrepreneur, I mean, you've done very well. There was a dark time in Ireland around 2008. That must have presented a certain challenge, and maybe you might have some business lessons from that for our audience.
I slept through the whole thing. Look, it was a very tough time. At that time, I was involved in commercial properties and working with the banks. So it was a very, very dark period. As I think I said to you earlier, I think for the banks, it was new to them and they didn't know how to handle it. But unfortunately, the side of that is they took the completely wrong approach with a lot of genuine, hardworking Irish business people, both men and women. As a result, unfortunately, an awful lot of people, and several people I know, took their lives, put their family conditions dreadful. And it was all completely unnecessary because these were the experienced people who could springboard back into life. And if you're going to put your money on people to help recover the economy, the best people to do it are experienced businessmen. But unfortunately, instead, they were tread upon and squashed and humiliated, as opposed to having reasonable conversations and supporting them through the crisis. So a black day, and hopefully there's a lot of lessons learned. From a business point of view, I think, it will come again. Recessions happen. Of
course, they happen,
if it's your first recession, you may know what to do. And the general advice I would say is act very quickly, extremely quickly. Don't go on like it's going to get better. It's not. That recession is going to bring you down a back alley and beat the what out of you. And it is. Revenues are going to dry up. Options are going to dry up. We can be inventive and creative and come out with averages. But ultimately, if you're running a firm and the revenue is dropping and your pipeline is reducing, and the economic figures are not good, you need to take firm action quickly.
I suppose, go on, sorry.
So that would be my act fast, act quick, and make sure you have a structure in place, particularly a cost structure in your business to cope. There's hard decisions, but you're a business person, that's what you're paid to do.
Oh, and I think that's very, very valuable information. And I think a lot of people will have had experience of COVID now, which is in its own way kind of like a bit of a recession, but we've seen business bounce back very well. In the sort of minute and a half I've left, Pat, what next for Pat Walsh? Tell me what
Yeah,
the
so
world holds for you.
yeah, we're enjoying. We use COVID time very well. So we got to fix a lot of things in the business that I suppose were due to be fixed for a long time. So that's worked out very well. We've done a lot of work on our digital tools. So, for example, on our Sky Business Center website, you can sign up for an office, our virtual office. You can choose one. You can pay. It's fully automated. So we've done a lot of work in that area, in our digital area, and a lot of work on our website and tools and our HR. So what's next now is really to focus and to grow our business. We are currently in a good place, and we're quite ambitious. From our Komeer point of view, we've already rolled out Komeer county-wide in Monaghan. So I think we've 1 in every 4 households in Monaghan using the service.
Fantastic.
It's being used by the PSNI and the Gardaí on a daily basis. So we're hoping to roll out Komeer in additional counties, and we're also looking to develop it further for personal safety. So to act as kind of a panic alarm for people who are out on the move or working from home, or that will have some fallback in that our system will contact their friends and family to let them know if they're unwell, if they have they're in imminent danger, or perhaps if they need to talk to somebody. So this is the develop our dev team are working on these things as I speak.